Another thing that we have been talking about at this training is how do we build routines? Because a really big part of naturalistic instruction, regardless of if you're using a specific naturalistic developmental behavioral intervention like Jasper or Early Start Denver model or PRT, or if you're just using the principles of naturalistic teaching, the big piece that makes it successful is figuring out how to create play and sensory social or kind of like daily living, around meals and getting dressed and things like that, routines. That's a huge piece of the framework. So one of the things that comes up is, well, what do we do? How do we count something as a routine? What do we do if we're having a difficult time building a routine? Once we have the routine, what do we do next? So there's a lot of questions that come up around routines. The first one that I'm going to talk about right now is, what do we do if we're having a hard time building a routine? And with that one, what tends to be the case is we need to look at two things. One, do we have a connected enough relationship with the child? Like, are they familiar enough with us? Do they trust us? Do they feel safe? Sometimes just being a new person in the child's life in and of itself means we need to spend some time building that relationship. The other piece is looking at the environment and how well designed the environment is for creating a routine. So with the connected relationship piece, as I mentioned, sometimes it might just be that you're new to working with the child. Sometimes it might mean this is a child that maybe people just haven't ever spent the time trying to genuinely and authentically get to know. So if you have a client where you're trying to build a routine, but they're kind of, engaging with something for a few seconds and then moving on to something else, or they're not really engaging with anything at all, that's usually a signal that we need to be focusing more on having pretty much no agenda. We're not trying to build a routine at all. We're just trying to very closely observe and genuinely understand who this client is to build that safe, trusting, connected relationship. And when we make that our priority, and that's all we're focusing on, could be one session, could be 15 minutes, could be 2 months. The amount of time will depend on how well you can build that relationship with the child. But if we make that our priority, it makes everything else so much easier, especially starting to build in routines. And I have a ton of resources and information where I go into more detail about connected relationships. So if that's something you want to learn more about, feel free to reach out. Then the other piece, as I mentioned, is really looking at the environment. Sometimes we might have a child who actually doesn't mind people being around and is willing to engage. You have enough of a connected relationship, but they're still sort of bouncing around from item to item. And in that case, what's usually going on is we just need to adjust the environment a bit, maybe take away too many, like if there's too much stuff out, it could cause some dysregulation. It can cause a lot of distraction and just that bouncing around behavior. And I don't mean bouncing like physically bouncing, but just moving from item to item. So if you're having that as the situation, it might be helpful to try to identify like 1 or 2, maybe 3 preferred items or activities and have like a rotation going where you just sort of rotate in and out some of the different items and see if the child's interested in those and if you can follow their lead in building a routine when you have less distractions in the environment. In the next video, I'll talk about what do we do once we've established a routine.